I still hear the knocking sometimes, even now, in a place hundreds of miles and a lifetime away. That soft, insistent tapping from inside a room I knew, with bone-deep certainty, was empty. The nationwide lockdown had been a slow strangulation of my life, constricting my freelance graphic design work until it withered, forcing me from a decent city apartment into the only place that would take me on short notice, and even shorter funds. Apartment 4B at the Stillwater. It was a crumbling brick edifice in a forgotten, perpetually gray corner of New Jersey, where the silence between the distant wail of ambulance sirens was too deep, too watchful, like a held breath. The previous tenant, a Mr. Alistair Finch according to the smudged lease agreement, had left little behind but a lingering film of dust, the faint, acrid smell of burnt paper, and a single crisply typed sheet on the grimy kitchen counter. 3 rules, stark and unnerving, under the heading, to stay alive in this place. I almost tossed it with the takeout menus and eviction notices from tenants past, another piece of grim urban folklore, until I heard his name, Alistair Finch's name, whispered from my own empty bedroom on the 3rd suffocating night. Apartment 4B was a symphony of decay. Peeling paint curled from the walls like sunburned skin. The ancient linoleum in the kitchen was cracked and stained with the ghosts of forgotten meals. And the air, God, the air, it was a palpable thing, thick with the scent of mildew, ancient dust, stale cigarettes, and an underlying unplaceable sweetness, like rotting flowers. The layout was odd, unsettlingly asymmetrical, with hallways that seemed to narrow unnaturally, and a pervasive sense that there were unseen spaces lurking just beyond the thin, water-stained drywall. Lockdown had turned the world outside into a muted, fearful landscape. Inside the Stillwater, it felt like being sealed in a forgotten crypt. My first few hours were a listless dance of unpacking essentials and trying to scrub away the grime of previous occupants, previous despairs. The silence was the worst, not a peaceful quiet, but a waiting, listening silence. The building groaned around me. The ancient plumbing gurgled like a dying beast in the walls. But beneath it all, there was a stillness that felt sentient. The typed rules on that sheet of paper felt cold in my hand. 1, always knock before entering any room, even your own bedroom. You might not be alone. 2, when you find letters slipped under your door addressed to former tenants who died here, burn them without reading, or you'll join their correspondence list. When you see yourself moving in reflections while you're standing still, don't let your double leave the glass first. A morbid prank, I told myself, left by a disgruntled Finch. My logical mind, the one that designed clean logos and rational layouts, rebelled against the superstitious dread they evoked. But the insomnia, my unwelcome companion since a family tragedy years ago, was already gnawing at the edges of my reason, and the oppressive isolation of the lockdown wasn't helping. That first night, I ignored Rule 1. I walked into my bedroom, a small, boxy room with a single grimy window overlooking a brick wall, without a thought. As I stood in the center, a floorboard in the far, shadowed corner creaked, a distinct pressure sound. After I had stopped moving, I froze, listened, nothing. Just the hum of the ancient refrigerator from the kitchen. Later, as I sat on the threadbare sofa in the living room, trying to lose myself in the blue light of my laptop, I heard it. A soft, distinct knock-knock from inside my closed bathroom door. My heart hammered. I called out. No response. I flung the door open. Empty. The porcelain was cold, the air still. The next day, as I was unpacking a box of old family photographs, mostly of my sister, Sarah. Before the accident, I propped one against a dusty lamp. It was a candid shot. Sarah laughing, her eyes bright. I caught my reflection in the cheap glass covering the photo. For a sliver of a second, my own reflected face seemed to lag, my expression not matching the weary sadness I felt. Its smile in that fleeting instant was wider, subtly different, almost predatory. I blinked and it was gone. Just my own tired face staring back. Just a trick of the light, I told myself. Just the lockdown playing with my head. The imagined slight in my reflection. The phantom knock. I tried to bury them under a mound of forced rationality, but the still water wouldn't let me. By the second night, I found myself hesitating at my own bedroom door. A ridiculous, self-conscious pause before entering. Rule 1. The knocking, when it came, felt like an answer. Not loud, not aggressive. Just a soft, almost polite acknowledgement from the other side of the door. From inside the room I was about to enter. It happened at the bathroom, the tiny spare room I designated as an office, even the coat closet. Each time, I'd throw the door open to find nothing but stale air and creeping shadows. On the third day, venturing out for essential groceries, a rare, masked foray into the anxious, distanced world, I encountered another tenant in the dim, echoing hallway. A woman, young, maybe late 20s, with wide, haunted eyes and a tremor in her hands that wasn't just from the cold. Apartment 3, Naomi Price. She flinched when I said hello. You and you, she whispered, her voice raspy, clinging to the wall as if for support. 4B, Finch's old place. Her gaze darted down the hall. Be careful. The walls are thin here. They listen, especially to the new ones. She mentioned Finch, asked if I'd found any of his letters yet, then hurried away, a frightened bird. Her words, Finch letters, echoed later that evening when I returned to find a single, yellowed envelope lying on the grimy doormat inside my apartment. It had no stamp, no postmark, just my apartment number, 4B, scrawled in a spidery, archaic hand, and beneath it, the name, Mr. Alistair Finch. My blood ran cold. Rule 2. When you find letters slipped under your door addressed to former tenants who died here, burn them without reading, or you'll join their correspondence list. My fingers itched to open it. Curiosity. A desperate need for some tangible clue in this house of whispers and shadows, warred with a primal, inexplicable fear. What could it possibly say? Who could have delivered it? I pictured Finch, the man whose name was whispered by the house itself. I imagined him, driven mad by this place, leaving cryptic warnings. But the rule was specific. Burn them without reading. Trembling hands, I carried it to the rusted kitchen sink, struck a match. The old paper caught quickly, curling and blackening. The smoke that rose wasn't the usual acrid smell of burning paper. It was faintly sweet, cloying, like burnt sugar, and beneath it, another scent, elusive and deeply unsettling, like old tears, or the metallic tang of unshed regret. As the last embers died, I felt a peculiar coldness in the room, as if something had been present, observing, and was now disappointed. The internet, my only window to a world that felt increasingly distant, offered little comfort. Searches for Stillwater. Apartments, New Jersey yielded fragmented, disturbing results. Snippets from old, digitized local newspapers. Mysterious disappearance at Stillwater Arms. Tenant suicide shocks West Orange. Rumors of occult activity at condemned Blackwood asylum site. The Stillwater, it seemed, was built on or perilously close to the grounds of the infamous Blackwood Asylum, a place shut down in the 50s for its barbaric treatment methods, particularly its experimental mirror wards, about which details were disturbingly scarce. The next morning, another envelope lay under my door, same spidery handwriting. This one, however, was addressed to Mr. Ben Whitaker. My heart plummeted. I hadn't burned the first one fast enough, or perhaps the act of burning itself was an acknowledgement. The note inside was brief, the ink faded but clear. Mr. Finch appreciates you forwarding his correspondence. He hopes you enjoy your stay at the Stillwater. He found it quite memorable. Nah. Yeah. I'd see this fish don't eat that fish, see. The letter from Finch was a turning point. The subtle dread that had been a low hum in the background of my days now became a shrill, insistent alarm. I was no longer an observer of the Stillwater's peculiarities. I was a participant. The isolation of the lockdown, once a source of dull ache, now felt like being sealed in a specifically designed torment chamber. My insomnia deepened, populated by fleeting images of spidery handwriting and doors that knocked back. Reflections became my obsession. Every polished surface, every darkened window, every accidental glimpse of myself was a source of anxiety. I'd catch my image in the black screen of my laptop after a work session and scrutinize it. Was my reflected self's weariness a shade too deep? Did its eyes hold a glimmer of something not entirely my own? I started noticing minute discrepancies. A book on the shelf behind me in the reflection might be infinitesimally out of place compared to its real-world counterpart. A shadow in the mirror would linger a fraction of a second longer than it should. Tricks of the light. Fatigue. The strain of solitude. I repeated these mantras, but they were wearing thin. The bathroom mirror was the worst. It was old. The silvering bubbled and peeling at the edges, giving everything a slightly distorted, melancholic cast. One morning, while attempting to shave, my hand already unsteady, I forced myself to stand perfectly still, staring into my own eyes. Rule 3. When you see yourself moving in reflections while you're standing still, don't let your double leave the glass first. For a long, breathless minute, nothing. Just my own haggard face, the stubble I was trying to remove, the tired, bloodshot eyes. Then slowly, almost imperceptibly, my reflection's head began to tilt, a subtle, inquisitive cant. Its eyes, still staring directly into mine, seemed to clear, the blue deepening to an almost luminous emerald green. My sister Sarah's eye color, a slow, chillingly familiar smile, Sarah's smile, spread across my reflected lips. My breath hitched. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. It wasn't Sarah, not really. It was an echo, a mimicry, using my own features, twisted with a memory that wasn't mine to reflect. The reflection raised its hand, my hand, but the fingers were subtly longer, the nails tapering to almost claw-like points. It was moving to touch the surface of the glass from its side, to emerge. I didn't. I slammed my own fist against the cold glass, a desperate warding gesture. Our hands met, glass between. Its touch through the barrier was shockingly cold. Its touch through the barrier was shockingly cold. For a split second, I saw its emerald eyes flare with something akin to frustrated hunger. I broke eye contact first, wrenching my gaze away, stumbling back. A strangled cry caught in my throat. When I dared to look again, my reflection was normal. My own blue eyes, my own terrified face. But the cold spot on the mirror where our hands had touched lingered for almost an hour. It was later that week, during another rare masked trip for supplies, that I saw a small typed flyer tacked to the peeling corkboard in the Stillwater's dim, water-stained lobby. Coping with lockdown stress and environmental anxiety. Confidential support available in building. Dr. A. Lang, App 2A, virtual or in-person, distance, sessions. App 2A. Someone else lived in this mausoleum. Someone offering help. The thought was a lifeline. That night, another letter addressed to a Miss Eliza Thorne. Occupant. Apt 4B. 1957. Older paper. The ink faded to a ghostly brown. This time I didn't hesitate. I burned it in the sink, the sweet, cloying smoke filling my small kitchen. But not before a single, tear-blurred word at the very bottom of the page. caught my eye before the flames consumed it. Trapped. My phone, a rare intrusion. Buzzed later. Locked caller ID, a dry, raspy voice, like stones grinding together, introduced itself as Mr. Dreyfus, the landlord. He was calling about a supposed late utilities payment, a bill I was certain I'd paid. He sounded distant, utterly unconcerned when I tried to voice my anxieties about the apartment, about the letters, about the reflections. Old buildings, Mr. Whitaker, he'd rasped. They have their settling noises, their drafts. Perfectly normal. His platitudes felt hollow, rehearsed. Before sleeping, if I could call my fitful, nightmare-ridden dozing sleep, I was rummaging in the back of my dusty bedroom closet, looking for an extra blanket. My fingers brushed against something small, metallic. A tiny, antique silver locket, tarnished with age. It was empty. On its smooth back, almost invisible in the grime, was a delicate scrolling engraving. E.T. forever in the glass. Eliza Thorne. The woman from the letter. Trapped. The locket felt unnaturally cold in my palm. A tiny silver anchor to a forgotten tragedy. Eliza Thorne, 1957. Trap. The word echoed the whispers that now seemed to be a permanent fixture in apartment 4B. They weren't just indistinct murmurs anymore. They curled from the grimy air vents, carrying fractured syllables, snippets of hushed, archaic conversations, and sometimes, with chilling clarity, my own name, Ben, drawn out in a long, mournful sigh that seemed to originate from deep within the walls themselves. Naomi Price from 3C became my reluctant, terrified barometer of the building's malevolence. I'd see her in the hallway, her eyes wider, darker circles beneath them. She stopped making eye contact. One afternoon, she cornered me by the rusty mail slots, her voice a frantic hiss. "They're getting louder, Whitaker. The listeners." She showed me her arm, hidden beneath her sleeve. Angry red scratches, like an animal had clawed her, formed a crude spiral pattern I recognized with a jolt, the same spiral and eye design as the token Alistair Finch's miskatonic visitor had left in the archive. In that other life, haunting. "They drew it on my wall last night," she whispered, tears welling, while I was sleeping. "They want in. The constant low-level dread, the escalating phenomena, the gnawing isolation. It was enough." I called the number on Dr. Audrey Lang's flyer. Her voice was calm, professional, a soothing balm on my frayed nerves. She offered an immediate, distanced in-person session in her apartment. 2A. Apartment 2A was a shock. Unlike the rest of the Stillwater's decaying squalor, it was surprisingly modern, almost clinically sterile. Clean white walls, minimalist furniture, soft, indirect lighting. Dr. Lang herself was in her mid-30s, smartly dressed with intelligent, empathetic eyes. She listened patiently as I recounted my experiences, the knocks, the letters, the terrifying incident with the bathroom mirror, the whispers. I carefully omitted the rules, the locket, Naomi's scratches, afraid of sounding completely unhinged. She nodded, took meticulous notes in a sleek digital tablet. "Mr. Whitaker," she said, her voice gentle. "It's not uncommon for individuals under prolonged stress, especially in isolating environments like this lockdown, and in buildings with a certain atmospheric weight, to experience heightened anxiety, leading to perceptual distortions. Auditory and minor visual anomalies are frequently reported. We sometimes term them reflection-induced dissociative episodes, particularly when mirrors are involved." She offered no judgment, only understanding. She prescribed a mild sedative, something to help calm the sympathetic nervous system, aid rest, and clarify thought patterns. I accepted, grateful for any port in this storm. A few days later, a sharp rap on my door. Officer Mark Delaney, a local cop whose beat apparently included the Stillwater. He was responding to a noise complaint. from my apartment. I hadn't made a sound above a whisper for days. He was polite, even sympathetic, his gaze sweeping my cramped living room. "This building, Mr. Whitaker," he said, lowering his voice. "It's got a bit of a reputation. Best to just keep your head down, you know? Don't go looking for trouble where there ain't none." His eyes, however, lingered on my bathroom door, on the main living room window that reflected the gloomy afternoon light. For just a fraction too long, a flicker of something unreadable in their depths. Dr. Lang's sedatives didn't clarify my thoughts. They muddied them. The world took on a slightly unreal, Vaseline-smeared quality. My reactions slowed, but the phenomena didn't stop. They intensified. Fleeting, translucent figures now danced at the edges of my vision. My mirror twin in the bathroom glass became bolder, its movements almost perfectly mimicking mine, but with an unnerving predatory confidence. Its borrowed emerald eyes, watching me with an intelligence that was growing, learning. It felt less like a reflection, and more like something, wearing my face, waiting patiently on the other side of a thinning veil. During my next virtual session with Dr. Lang, she'd suggested moving online for my comfort. I glanced past her image on my laptop screen. Behind her, on a bookshelf in her sterile apartment, I saw them. Not medical texts, not psychology journals. Instead, rows upon rows of old leather-bound volumes, titles glinting in the soft light. Umbral symbiotics. A study of reflected entities, folklore of the glass demon, parapsychic anchors in distressed geographies, and one particularly thick, disturbing tome titled Sympathetic Resonance and Fractured Realities. Case studies from the Blackwood Mirror Ward experiments. My blood turned to ice. On her desk, partially obscured by a stack of papers, was a heavy-duty, locked metal filing cabinet. Affixed to the top drawer was a neatly printed label. Stillwater Apartments, Active Subjects. Beneath it, smaller labels. Finch A. Terminated. Thorn E. Archived. Price N. Active Stage 3. And then the last one, freshly printed. Whitaker B. Active Stage 2. The labels on Dr. Lang's filing cabinet. Finch A. Terminated. Thorn E. Archived. Price N. Active Stage 3. Whitaker B. Active Stage 2. Burned themselves onto my retinas. A hideous clinical epitaph for the damned. My carefully constructed denial. The desperate hope that Dr. Lang was a beacon of sanity in this decaying madhouse. Crumbled into dust. She wasn't a therapist. She was a vivisectionist of the psyche, and the Stillwater Apartments were her abattoir. The sedatives, the empathetic listening, the sterile modernity of her apartment, all a meticulously crafted facade. A cold, razor-sharp fury, an emotion I hadn't felt in years, pierced through the drug-induced fog. I abruptly ended the virtual session, my mind racing. I had to find Naomi. Stage 3. What fresh hell did that entail? I practically kicked down the door to apartment 3. The lock, flimsy and old, offered little resistance. Naomi's apartment was a wreck. Furniture overturned, papers scattered, the air thick with the scent of fear, and that same cloying, burnt sugar smell from Finch's letter. And the walls, the spiral and eye symbols Naomi had shown me, were no longer just scratches. They were deeper now, almost carved into the plaster, and they glowed with a faint, sickly green luminescence, pulsing in time with a low, almost sub-audible thrum that seemed to emanate from the very foundations of the building. Letters, dozens of them, all addressed to Naomi Price in that same spidery, archaic hand, were scattered across the floor like fallen leaves. She was gone. Naomi was progressing exceptionally well, Mr. Whitaker. Dr. Lang's voice, calm and chillingly devoid of emotion, came from directly behind me. I whirled around, She stood in Naomi's doorway, no longer the empathetic therapist, but a figure of cold, scientific detachment. In her hand, she held a small, sophisticated recording device. Her sympathetic resonance was achieving optimal levels. I believe she may have achieved full integration. Integration, I spat. The word tasting like ash. What did you do to her? What is this place? Lang's lips curved into a thin, almost predatory smile. This place, Mr. Whitaker, is a crucible. A unique nexus where the veil between realities, shall we say, is exceptionally thin. The Blackwood Asylum's mirror ward wasn't just barbaric. It was inadvertently groundbreaking. They stumbled upon something. Prolonged emotional distress, specific architectural disharmonies, and the inherent reflective properties of this location. It creates a conduit. A conduit for what? I demanded, though a sickening dread already knew the answer. For them, she said, gesturing vaguely around the pulsing, symbol-scarred room. The echoes, the others, the mirror twins, as you've so aptly named your own. Her eyes gleamed with a fanatic's light. They exist, Mr. Whitaker, entities from a parallel, perhaps symbiotic, dimension, seeking ingress. They need a host, a compatible human consciousness to anchor them, to replace. My research, my life's work, is to prove it. Irrefutably, the pieces slammed together with horrifying clarity. The rules, likely desperate warnings left by previous victims, now unwittingly part of her experimental protocol. Mr. Dreyfus, the absent landlord, either a terrified accomplice, paid off with her research grants, or perhaps even an earlier, more deeply integrated subject himself, a gatekeeper for this living lab. Officer Delaney, her eyes and ears, ensuring no inconvenient outside interference. And me, stage 2, progressing. You're insane, I whispered, backing away. Am I? Lang raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. Or am I on the cusp of the greatest discovery in human history? Naomi, Mr. Finch, Miss Thorne. They are pioneers, Mr. Whitaker, contributing to a profound understanding. And you, with your particular sensitivities, your pre-existing trauma, your wonderfully malleable perception under lockdown duress. You are my most promising subject yet. She took a step closer. Don't fight it. Embrace the resonance. Imagine the acclaim. Co-authorship, of course. The building itself seemed to respond to her words, to her intent. The low thrum intensified. Reflections began to shimmer on surfaces that held no right to them. The dull, greasy paint of the walls, a dark patch of water stain on the ceiling, even the lenses of Lang's glasses. My own mirror twin, no longer confined to the bathroom glass, flickered at the edge of my vision with increasing boldness, its features sharpening, its borrowed emerald eyes filled with a cold, alien longing that was terrifyingly potent. It began to speak, its voice a sibilant, distorted echo of my own, whispering promises of an end to pain, an end to loneliness, an end to me. Lang watched, her expression one of rapt, scientific fascination. Remarkable. The dimensional bleed is accelerating. You are nearing stage 3, Mr. Whitaker. The invitation. I had to get out, to warn someone, though who would believe me? But Lang blocked the doorway. And then the true horror of Rule 3 slammed home. I stumbled back into Naomi's small, grimy bathroom, seeking a momentary refuge, a place to think. The mirror above the sink was cracked, a spider web of fractures distorting the reflection. But even through the cracks I saw him. My mirror twin, it stood within the glass. Not mimicking me this time, it was already moving, its form solidifying, its hand, those long claw-tipped fingers, reaching out, pressing against the silvered surface from the other side. the glass seeming to ripple like water around its touch. It was intent on stepping through. "Don't let your double leave the glass first," the rule screamed in my mind. Its emerald eyes met mine, a chilling, triumphant smile spreading across its borrowed face. "It's so cold on this side, Ben," it whispered, its voice a perfect, chilling echo of my own, yet overlaid with something hungry. "Time to let me out. Time for you to come." In, its fingers began to push, the cracked glass groaning, beginning to bulge outwards. Lang appeared in the bathroom doorway behind me, her expression ecstatic. "Yes, the transference? Document everything," she hissed, fumbling with her recording device. This was it, the final test. My sanity, my very existence, balanced on the razor edge of a mad woman's experiment, and a rule I'd once dismissed as a cruel joke. I had to stop it. I had to stop it. I had to fight my own face, my own form, before it stepped out of the glass and claimed my life. The sight of my mirror twin's hand pressing through the rippling surface of the glass, its emerald eyes burning with possessive hunger, lit a firestorm of primal terror and adrenaline in my veins. Lang's ecstatic pronouncements about transference were a distant, maddening buzz. There was no time for reason, only instinct, only the desperate, clawing need to survive. "No!" I roared, a sound torn from the very depths of my being. I lunged, not at my reflection, but at the source of its manifestation, the mirror itself. My fist connected with the cracked ancient glass. It shattered with a percussive explosion, shards flying like shrapnel, a piercing, multi-tone shriek, like 1,000 tortured voices, erupted from the empty space where the mirror had been. A wave of icy psychic pressure slamming into me, throwing me back against the grimy tile wall. The mirror twin, its form flickering violently as its conduit was destroyed, let out a frustrated, inhuman snarl before dissolving into wisps of oily black smoke that were quickly sucked back into the exposed, crumbling plaster. Lang screamed, a sound of pure, unadulterated fury. "You imbecile, you've destroyed years of data. The primary interface. He was almost through." She lunged at me, no longer the detached scientist, but a creature of pure, thwarted rage. Her fingers curled into claws. I scrambled away, kicking out, connecting with her shin. She stumbled, giving me a precious second. The apartment was now a chaotic symphony of horrors. Reflections flickered on every conceivable surface. The blank screen of Naomi's discarded television, a puddle of murky water from a leaking pipe, even the polished chrome of the bathroom faucet. Each one showed a fleeting glimpse of him, the mirror twin, its emerald eyes burning with renewed intensity, trying to find a new purchase, a new way in. The whispers from the vents were a deafening chorus now, calling my name, promising, threatening. "You can't stop it, Whitaker." Lang shrieked, recovering, her face contorted. "The resonance is too strong. He's already tethered to you. He just needs a new door." She gestured wildly around the room. "Look, he's everywhere." She was right. I couldn't fight every reflection. I had to get out of the apartment, out of the building. But the lockdown, the still water itself, felt like a trap. Its very architecture designed to hold its victims. Then I remembered Naomi's words, her desperate, scratched symbols, and the locket, E.T. forever in the glass. Eliza Thorne, the letters I'd burned. What if some rules were not just warnings, but also clues, driven by a desperate hunch? I kicked open the small medicine cabinet above the sink, its own small mirrored door thankfully still intact. But for how long? Behind the dusty bottles, tucked into a crevice, was a small folded piece of brittle yellowed paper. Eliza Thorne's handwriting. Frantic, terrified. "He comes when she calls. The iron, pure iron, breaks the image. Dreyfus knows he won't help. He serves the glass. Pure iron. Lang was advancing on me again, her eyes wild. In the periphery, on the dark screen of Naomi's TV, the mirror twin was coalescing, its form more solid, its hand already pressing against the dormant glass. My eyes scanned the wrecked bathroom. Under the sink, amidst the rust and grime, was an old, heavy length of lead pipe. Not iron, but then I saw it. The ancient, cast iron drain cover in the center of the floor. Its grate forming a crude, almost spiral pattern. I had no time to think. Lang was almost upon me. The mirror twin on the TV screen was grinning. I stomped down hard on the cast iron drain cover. It groaned, protesting then. With a screech of tortured metal, a section of it broke free. It was heavy, jagged, coated in decades of filth. Pure, rusted iron. Lang reached for me. I swung the jagged piece of iron, not at her, but at the TV screen where my doppelganger was now halfway through, its arm outstretched, its emerald eyes burning with triumph. The iron made contact with the glass. The result was not just a shattering, it was an implosion. A soundless shriek of tearing reality. The image of the mirror twin didn't just break. It screamed, distorting, stretching, then collapsing in on itself, as if consumed by an invisible vortex, leaving behind only the scent of ozone, and the faint, bitter smell of something ancient, and the faint, bitter smell of something ancient. Defeated, every other flickering reflection in the room winked out simultaneously. The oppressive psychic pressure vanished. The whispers ceased. For the first time since I'd entered apartment 4B, there was silence. A true, blessedly empty silence. Lang stared, aghast, at the ruined television, then at the piece of iron in my hand. What have you done? She whispered, her voice trembling, her fanaticism replaced by a dawning, horrified understanding, the sympathetic anchor. You've neutralized it. The fight wasn't over. She was still between me and the door, but the playing field felt different. The silence in Naomi's apartment was profound, almost unnerving in its sudden totality. Dr. Lang, her face a mask of disbelief and dawning professional ruin, seemed to deflate. The manic energy that had driven her was gone, replaced by a hollow-eyed despair. Decades of research, she whispered, more to herself than to me. The perfect environmental crucible. All for nothing. Your research killed people, Lang, I said, my voice raw, the jagged piece of iron still heavy in my hand. Finch, Thorne, Naomi, how many others? She didn't answer, just stared at the blank, shattered TV screen as if expecting her precious mirror twin to rematerialize. This was my chance. I backed slowly towards the door, never taking my eyes off her. She made no move to stop me. The fight, it seemed, had gone out of her. Getting out of the still water was a blur. I didn't bother packing. I didn't bother calling Mr. Dreyfus or Officer Delaney, whose complicity now seemed sickeningly clear. I just ran. The lockdown was still in effect. The streets eerily empty, but the muted fear of the outside world felt like a comforting embrace compared to the horrors I'd left behind. I went to the police, of course. My story, a frantic, disjointed tale of a rogue parapsychologist, whispering vents and murderous reflections, was met with predictable skepticism. They investigated, found Dr. Lang in apartment 2A, surrounded by her bizarre books and case files. She was catatonic, staring blankly at a wall, muttering about broken resonance and contaminated data. They found Naomi's trashed apartment, the strange symbols, without a body, without a clear crime beyond Lang's obvious mental instability, and perhaps some unlicensed practice. There was little they could do beyond committing Lang for psychiatric evaluation. The Stillwater Apartments was condemned. deemed structurally unsound, and a public health hazard. Mr. Dreyfus, it turned out, was a shell corporation with no traceable owner. Officer Delaney requested a transfer to another precinct, citing personal reasons. Life, as they say, went on. The lockdown eventually lifted. I moved hundreds of miles away, found a new job, a new apartment, one with bright south-facing windows and absolutely no old mirrors. I even started sleeping again, most nights. But normal is a fragile thing. I can't look at my own reflection for too long without a prickle of unease, without searching for that infinitesimal lag, that flicker of emerald green in my blue eyes. Sometimes, late at night, when the building is quiet, I think I hear a faint, distant knocking from inside an empty room, and every so often, I receive a plain, unmarked envelope in the mail. Inside, there's never a letter, just a single, pressed, perfectly preserved, slightly iridescent black feather, like one from a crow, or perhaps a bird of ill omen from a place where shadows have substance. I never found out what happened to Naomi Price. Her official status is missing person, presumed to have absconded during lockdown. But I know better. I check the obituary sometimes, searching for a Jane Doe, for any mention of a woman with haunted eyes found near a place with too many mirrors. One evening, about a year after I fled the Stillwater, I was idly scrolling through an online news aggregator. A small local article from a town in upstate New York caught my eye. A historic, somewhat dilapidated inn, recently reopened after extensive renovations, was reporting strange occurrences, guests complaining of unsettling reflections, of feeling watched, of hearing whispers. The new innkeeper, a recently arrived, highly qualified, but intensely private woman named Dr. A. Lamarck. An anagram I noted with a fresh stab of cold dread, of Real C, or perhaps hauntingly, Rear Calm, was assuring everyone that it was Suri, merely the old building settling. The article included a blurry photo of the inn's newly refurbished, antique mirrored dining room, and there, just for a fraction of a second, in the depths of one of those gleaming, polished surfaces, I thought I saw it. A familiar, predatory smile, and a pair of knowing, luminous emerald eyes, watching, waiting. The research, it seemed, was not entirely terminated. The glass, somewhere, was always dark, and the reflections, always hungry.